He was a name the world feared. A man who built an empire with bullets, blood, and billions. For a time, he was untouchable, worshipped by the poor, feared by the rich, and hunted by governments. But power is never eternal, because even kings have ghosts. And for Pablo Escobar, those ghosts wore familiar faces. This is not the story of how he rose. It's the story of how he fell, not at the hands of strangers, but of the men who once swore loyalty to him. This is Pablo Escobar, and these are the men who betrayed him. Medellin, Colombia. The city glows under a pale yellow haze, its streets alive, but uneasy. Somewhere within its tangled alleys, Pablo Escobar hides like a shadow no one dares to speak of. The rain begins to fall, slow, heavy, rhythmic. Every drop echoes on the rooftop of a small safe house at the edge of the city. Inside, the walls are bare, just a bed, a small table, a flickering light, and a phone. Escobar stands by the window, watching his city through a thin curtain. He sees the lights, the streets he once owned, the silence he created. Now it feels foreign, distant, unrecognizable. On the table lies a black telephone, his only connection to what's left of his world. He hesitates, then picks it up, dials a number from memory. It's his son, Juan Pablo. For a moment, everything else fades. The sound of his boy's voice cracks through the static. They talk about nothing, safety, 34, family, the hope of escape. But behind every word, Escobar knows the truth. He's being listened to. He ends the call, eyes on the rain. Somewhere out there, his enemies listen to every breath he takes. The king is still alive, but the throne is long gone. The mountain is cold, quiet, and hidden by fog, like a secret the earth itself wants to forget. And there, sitting high above Medellin, stands La Catedral, a prison built not by justice, but by the man it was meant to hold. Pablo Escobar's idea of prison was never punishment. It was comfort wrapped in concrete, a place where his enemies couldn't reach him, and his power could still breathe freely. From the outside, it looked impenetrable. Armed guards patrolled the walls. Fences coiled with barbed wire shimmered in the fog. But inside, it was paradise. Soft light from chandeliers bathed marble floors. A bar stocked with imported liquor. Televisions, a billiards table, even a disco. Every cell had leather furniture and luxury sheets. The guards didn't guard, they served. They cooked for him, fetched guests, even stood watch when he entertained women. At the top of the hill, the most powerful man in Colombia drank whiskey, laughed with friends, and told stories of loyalty. But underneath that laughter lived paranoia. Every smile he saw, every hand he shook, he questioned. He had built his empire on loyalty, but he knew how thin that word really was. Then came the whispers. Two of his trusted lieutenants, Kiko Moncada and Fernando Galeano, had been stealing from the cartel. Millions gone, hidden, stolen. Escobar invited them to La Catedral. No guards, no threats, just dinner. They arrived in suits, nervous but respectful. The table was full, roasted meat, bottles of wine, fresh bread. For a few minutes, laughter filled the air again. Then Escobar's voice dropped. He leaned forward. "Did you steal from me?" They froze, denied it, swore loyalty. He listened in silence, then nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "I believe you." He raised his hand, a simple gesture. 2 gunshots echoed through the room. The sound lingered in the marble halls like a ghost refusing to leave. His guests sat frozen, glasses half raised. No one spoke. No one moved. That night, Pablo Escobar didn't just kill 2 men. He killed the last illusion that he was in control. By dawn, the news reached Bogota. The government had enough. They decided to move him to a real prison, a place without chandeliers and bodyguards. When soldiers arrived at La Catedral, they found empty chairs, half-smoked cigars, and the smell of gunpowder still in the air. The king had vanished into the fog, and that fog would never lift again. In the days that followed, Medellin became a city divided by silence. People who once cheered Escobar's name now locked their doors when they heard it. The government, humiliated by his escape, called in the Americans. Helicopters painted with US flags began to fly over the hills. The search block, a special military unit, was reborn, bigger, deadlier than before. Their mission? Find Pablo Escobar, at any cost. But they weren't alone. A new, shadowy group was already hunting. Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. They were a mix of everyone who had ever suffered at his hands, former cartel members, police, but soldiers, politicians, grieving families. But behind them stood someone darker, his old allies, funding revenge. They didn't care about justice, but they wanted blood. Los Pepes began their hunt quietly, burning cars, bombing houses, killing lawyers and accountants. They left notes pinned to bodies. For every death, another death. The streets filled with fear again. But this time, it wasn't Escobar's men people feared. It was his ghosts. The search block and Los Pepes shared information, though never admitted it. It was an unholy alliance, one hunted by law, the other by vengeance. Pablo S. began to crack. Couriers stopped showing up. Warehouses full of money were found and raided. Even his pilots, once loyal, once rich, disappeared or defected. Every call, every meeting, every whisper being a risk. And the walls around the king began to close. By 1993, Escobar was a man with no empire, just a name and a few safe houses. He moved constantly from one hideout to another, small, dirty, forgotten homes. He no longer lived like a king, that he hid like a fugitive. Each night, he'd stand by a window, watching lights flicker through the rain. The world outside kept moving, but he was stuck in a cage of his own creation. The man who once built schools and gave money to the poor now watched his name being cursed on television. The empire he built was gone. His men dead. or rested, or worse, turned against him. He still had one companion, El Limon, his loyal bodyguard, a quiet man, loyal to the end. They moved together, through tunnels, over rooftops, always carrying a radio, always listening for the sound of death approaching. Sometimes they'd stop in abandoned buildings, but Escobar would look out the window and whisper, "Once, this whole city belonged to me." And Limon would nod, but say nothing. At night, Pablo still called his family, relations. He'd dial his son, hear his voice, and pretend for a moment that everything was normal. But deep down, he knew. Every call could be the one that ends it all. He had built his empire on fear, and now he was living inside that fear. By mid-1993, the lines between loyalty and survival had vanished. Pablo's old friends were dying, and his enemies were multiplying. People he once trusted began selling his location to Los Pepes, to the search block, to anyone who would listen. In Denise, one of his own drivers gave up a safe house for a handful of cash. A cousin leaked information to keep his family alive. Even some police who once worked for Escobar now worked against him, quietly passing maps, phone intercepts, coordinates. Each betrayal hit like a slow knife. He had built everything through fear and loyalty, but now both it had turned into poison. Escobar began to test those around him, giving false information, to see who would repeat it. And every time it came back to him, document he felt the noose tighten. He told Limon once, "It's not the army that will kill me, it's my own shadow." And he was right. Every road he took was already known. Every safe house already watched. Someone, somewhere, was telling the other side. The king of Medellin was no longer hunted by strangers. He was hunted by the men who once raised their glasses to his name. December 2nd, 1993. The rain returns, slow, endless, and heavy. A dull grey morning in the Los Olivos neighbourhood of Medellin. Inside a small red brick house, Escobar sits at a table with a pistol beside a half-empty plate of food. The radio hums softly, tuned to static. He hasn't spoken to anyone in days. Then he does what he shouldn't. He picks up the phone. He dials his son. On the other end, Juan Pablo answers, "Papa?" For a moment, Pablo smiles, really smiles. He talks about escape plans, about money, about dreams. He talks like a man who still believes he can outrun the world, but he doesn't know. He's already being followed. The signal from that phone burns through the air like a flare in darkness. Miles away, inside a military base, the coordinates lock in. A red light blinks. Target found. Soldiers move. Engines start. The search block rushes towards Los Olivos, and with them, hidden among the ranks, are Los Pepes, the hunters and the traitors, together. The sound comes first, the faint hum of engines, in the rain, then the boots, then the shouting. Pablo stands. He grabs his weapon, looks at Limon. They know, it's over. The door explodes open. Bullets tear through the air. Glass shatters, plaster falls like dust. Escobar fires back, running upstairs, adrenaline replacing fear. Limon follows, shouting his name, covering his back. They reach the rooftop. The rain blinds them. City stretches below, endless lights, endless history. He looks at it one last time. His Medellin. The place that made him, loved him, feared him. He sees soldiers closing in through the mist. He fires again, then again. Character sound is lost in the storm. Then, one final shot. A bullet pierces his ear. He collapses against the cold rooftop tiles. When the soldiers arrive, they find him face down, blood mixing with rainwater, pistol inches from his hand. Comment radio crackles softly. Objective down. The king of Medellin is gone. By evening, his photo spreads across the world. His body on the rooftop, rain still falling. To some, justice. To others, tragedy. But to everyone, an ending. And yet, something lingers. His ghost, his legend, his story whispered through the alleys of Medellin. The men who betrayed him didn't find peace either. Some were hunted, others disappeared. A few died in the same streets they sold him out in. The empire of Escobar was destroyed, but its shadow still lives in every act of greed, in every man who thinks he can control loyalty. Because in the end, it wasn't the DEA, the army, or the police who killed him. It was the people who once swore never to betray him. Every kingdom falls the same way, not by invasion, but by betrayal. As Machiavelli once said, "He who builds on the people builds on mud." And in the mud of Medellin, Pablo Escobar built his empire.